People are joining, we're just welcoming everyone as they join.
Yeah.
Join our live. We have Andy Miller from Boatworks today. We got Mike, TotalBoat founder. We got a boat. There's no slabs in sight. There's
we have
0 knots to fill.
Yeah.
It's just boat stuff
We're just
today.
doing boat stuff, which is cool.
Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of boat stuff.
Lots of boat stuff.
Andy's been here for like 2 weeks.
Yep.
Trip number 2.
Trip number 2.
And we've gotten a lot done. It's been awesome.
Yeah. So, thanks to Pete Allery, who's stepping out in the background.
See you,
Peter,
Pete.
helped us do work. Thank you. The best. Welcome to our TotalBoat live stream today, you guys. This is Andy Miller from Boatworks today. And if you don't follow his boat repair channel on YouTube, then you need to.
You should.
Yeah, you should.
And
What
you
are
should.
waiting for?
Exactly.
Especially if you have a boat, because he knows all the things about the boat repair things.
Right.
And he's been helping us on this 1970 Seacraft, is that right?
Exactly. Classic 20-foot Seacraft.
Vintage yacht behind us.
Built in Miami in 1970.
It's an awesome boat and it needed some love, so Andy came and helped us out, and we used all these products here that we're guessing that most of you guys haven't used because you're doing woodworking or something else. So we thought we'd take today to answer your questions and also show you what we've been up to.
Right.
This is quite the spread. You got the full kitchen sink over here.
We got the kitchen sink. We got a lot of different epoxies and resins and stuff that we have that you used in the past week that people have never seen or even heard of.
So you make stuff for boats.
We do. We have a couple people using TotalBoat on boats.
A lot of people use TotalBoat on boats.
A lot of people use TotalBoat on boats. And I think actually that we should start this live stream by saying you might see that this product line not only looks different because it's product that you haven't seen before, but the labels are totally different.
We
And
got
that's
new
a
labels.
sneak peek at the hard work that our team's been doing here to give us new labels. And why do we have new labels, Mike?
Well, to make it easier for the customers to figure out what the product does, you can see we have the green sort of shows what the product is used for. So you can see the total tread has green on the tread of the boat. And it makes it a lot easier for the customers. So we just tried to make it easier for the customers to figure out laminating resin. This is where you would put the resin on the boat. And just more differentiates it when it's on a shelf or online. So
And
really
what shelf?
exciting.
A new shelf.
Yes. Well, we've got TotalBoat in some Lowe's now. We're doing a test with Lowe's, which is really exciting. So go to your local Lowe's and ask for TotalBoat.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be in there, depending on where you live. But either way, you should go tell the people in the paint department that you want some TotalBoat. And they'll get it for you. They can actually get it for you
It's true.
if you want. So.
And there's some in the Midwest that have it. And Andy, you're from Michigan.
I'm from Michigan now. Yep, a recent transplant.
Okay.
And trying to figure out a way to carry your stuff as well.
Nice.
We're working on it.
That'd be good. All right. Well, let's talk about a couple of the things that you did here. We have some people in our live. Yes. Any questions?
People are loving the new labels. They're saying congrats. They look really nice.
Exactly.
Great.
Awesome. Wait. Shout out to our creative team. So I thought we would just maybe talk about some of this stuff and how we used it on the boat and how you use it in a lot of the boat repair you do. I also thought we could mention that Andy's channel. How many subscribers do you have on your channel, your YouTube channel?
I think I'm pushing around 230,000.
Okay, so 230,000 followers on his channel. He's done a really good job. His channel's a little different than a lot of the other YouTube channels because he does a lot more very specific how-tos.
Yep.
Yeah. Something I consider to be more of like an educational how-to, specifically geared towards the DIY boat owners. Yeah, that's primarily it. I try and keep it fun, upbeat, but it's still got the main point of the channel is to try and help you with your own projects. So it's not all fun and games. I try the best I can. Sometimes I fall flat on my face, but overall at the end of the day, I think the information that I'm trying to relay hopefully comes across in a good understanding way. So
And it's a lot of paint, and it's a lot of epoxy and resins and fiberglass and gel coating, right?
Yeah. So I mean, if you were to pin me down and ask, well, what is it that you do? And it's always been the same answer since day one when I started doing this 20 plus years ago, right? And primarily the things that I focus on are the things that make your boat safe and look good. I don't get into the mechanical. I don't get into the electrical, but I do the things that keep your boat safe, meaning structural repairs, fiberglass, as well as make it look good. So that means, you know, doing a lot of your woodworking, your finishing, your painting, your gel coating. I dabbled in some rigging, you know, but I'm not gonna go off in the weeds on that one. But
Right. And we've been working together for how long? 5 years, 10 years?
I want to say longer than that, like 8 or 9 years.
Yeah.
8 or 9 years.
Exactly.
So yeah, it all kind of came to a head for me personally, because a little bit of backstory. I started off going way back. I started off working at a marina knowing less than nothing. And I took a job there as a grunt. And I worked there for 7, 8-ish years, give or take. And there were some opportunities that came up with the marina coming in next door. So I'm like, you know, this seems like a good chance to possibly dip my toe into going off into, you know, starting my own business. So I did that. And I did contract work almost 18 years, give or take, something like that. And, okay. So then, you know, during that time, I also started the YouTube channel. And again, the YouTube channel I started 12, maybe 13 years ago. Honestly, I don't remember at this point. But, you know, as both of those businesses grew, it came to a point where there's only so many hours in a day, right? And it's just me. You know, I couldn't do both very well. So when push came to shove, I needed to make a choice. It was, you know, was I going to focus on doing contract work, or was I going to go all in and you know, focus on the YouTube thing? And I put a video out about that. You know, that was a long time ago. And Kristen was the first person. She piped right up. She's like, "We're there for you." So that's been a relationship ever since. So it's been awesome, amazing group of people. You know, that work throughout this whole company. So it's been a wonderful experience.
Glad to have you here.
Exactly.
It's been awesome.
No, it's really fun to get to spend time with you and learn even more about fixing boats, and obviously working with you on the influencer stuff is really great.
That's always the fun part.
Yeah, no, and it's fun to just watch you grow and be part of your journey, and help all of these other viewers and Patreons and all the people that love you on BoatWorks today. I mean, it's just so much fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, right on. That's the whole point. Right?
Exactly.
To help out and help other people get their own projects out, so they can get out and have some fun.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So can we actually take the phone and walk around?
Yep, we can.
Because that would be sort of the most interesting. I think.
Exactly. Yeah, I think so too. 'Cause we got a bunch of products that are not. We haven't painted yet, so we're in process with a lot of these repairs, and maybe you want to talk through a couple things. I thought the first thing that we could just mention is just the different epoxy that you used on this project. We normally have people using our high performance, which is the 2-to-1 system, and this we used all of our traditional, sort of maybe the traditional marine epoxy.
Right. The
Is
5-to-1.
5-to-1.
Right.
Do you guys want to expound on that a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I can. I can tell you, you know, from my perspective, you know, kind of how I look at the two materials. So, you know, when it comes to doing fiberglass repair, you know, and I guess I'll kind of keep it specific on that topic. But when you're talking about fiberglass repair, you can use either the 2-to-1 or the 5-to-1. They have some, without going too far off in the weeds here, they do have some slightly different working characteristics. Now, for this particular project, we were going with the 5-to-1, and for the sole reason that a lot of the fiberglass that we were repairing, the original fiberglass skins are thin. So there just isn't the possibility to lay up 5, 6, 7 layers of whatever cloth, biaxial, chop strand, whatever it may happen to be. That's just not an option. So when you're talking about, you know, working with limited thickness, the 5-to-1 it cures to a stiffer laminate. So when we're working with a given thickness, if we want to try and get, you know, pump as much strength as we can into that, that's where the 5-to-1 really shines. So there are some additional steps, and I'm sure we'll talk about that here throughout this broadcast, but there are some, you know, primarily just one additional step that you really should kind of be aware of when you're working with the 5-to-1, or really any specific high ratio epoxy, whether it's 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's very easy material to work with, but for this project, we chose a 5-to-1 just, again, specifically because we were trying to get the most strength and stiffness out of a fairly minimal, you know, laminate.
Right.
Were you just going to mention blush?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Okay, so when you're dealing with these higher ratio epoxies, you know, there is a byproduct, you know, during the curing process. It's called amine blush, right? And all it is, it's just kind of like a waxy film, right?
Yeah,
that floats
exactly.
to the surface after it's skinned over.
When it cures, yeah.
And removing that is a piece of cake. Before you do anything, you know, you don't sand it off. But as far as removing it, take some warm water. You don't even need, it doesn't even need to be soapy water. You just take some warm water and a Scotch-Brite pad, give it a little rubby, wipe it off with some paper towel, and now you've removed the blush. Now you can sand, you can do whatever it is you want to do, you know, for the following steps.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and that's sort of, with our 2-to-1 epoxy, the 2-to-1 really doesn't blush at all.
No.
And that's sort of the difference.
Yeah.
It's a little clearer, and it doesn't blush. And we have 3 hardeners with the 2-to-1. That's sort of the high performance is what a lot of the woodworkers use. And the 5-to-1 is really more of the common marine epoxy.
Mm-hmm.
And so being TotalBoat, we thought it would be a good idea to have a 5-to-1 epoxy because it's sort of what a lot of the classic boat builders have always used.
Mm-hmm.
They're very comfortable with it. And it is also strong. They're both really good, but that's really the difference. It's the ratio
Right.
and the blushing. And the 2-to-1's a little bit more clear. It's a
Yeah.
little thinner. It's a little bit more low vis,
viscosity, yeah.
so it wets out a little different. But 5-to-1's great too.
a little more flexibility on the 2-to-1. But again, you know, going back to this particular project, because we were working with literally like 1/8-inch thick laminates, the 5-to-1 is a stiffer, stronger material compared to the 2-to-1.
Right.
But so that's why we're using it here. But you know, in either case, you can use either epoxy for your particular application. But that's the reason that we chose to go this route using the 5-to-1 here.
Cool.
Should we just talk a little bit more
Yeah.
about the whole idea with this
Yeah.
project?
Totally.
Okay, so this boat, we call this boat 80-20, 80%, 20%. It's just the name of the boat. And like we were saying, it's a classic Seacraft, so it's that's the brand name. It's 20 feet long. It was built in Miami in 1970, and sort of famous with the hull design. It's really pretty. It's sort of a very common fishing boat, like a good bass fishing boat. This was a boat that we purchased, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And she had actually never been left in the water. So we put underwater primer on her and we put bottom paint on her. And she was really in tip top. But we really hadn't done much in about 15 years. So a number of things needed some upgrades. And maybe we'll walk around. I'll just show you a few of the things that we're doing. But basically now this boat is the shop boat. So we use this boat for photo shoots and for cruising around. Party barge, taking influencer visitors on, and generally just, you know, using it as a work boat. But also it's really wonderful that we get to work on her and use all the products. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Let's check it out.
Yes, so let's check it out.
Yeah.
Where do we want to start? Because we've touched pretty much
Right.
every aspect of this boat
Right.
over the last couple of weeks.
One thing we decided to do is put a new rub rail on the boat. So you can see we've ripped the old rub rail off and actually sanded and epoxied the deck to the hull all the way around, and also put new rivets in. And now we will be putting the rub rail back on, and we did it with Thixo. If you guys, I'm sure, are very familiar with Thixo. So we use Thixo to get in here like that. So I think we're pretty good on this, right? We
Yep.
just need to put the rub rail back
Right.
on.
Yeah.
So there was that, and then let's see. This part, I'll walk around the other side. Should we show these guys what we did with
Yeah.
the...
Do it. And I have a sample of
the
that
deck?
fiberglass here because I think it's
All right.
interesting. Because nobody uses this either.
Yeah, exactly. So we also had to strengthen the deck right here. So this was sort of a weak spot in the deck. And so, I don't know, do you want to explain what you and Pete did?
Yeah, okay. So, again, without going, information overload, there's a bunch of different types of fiberglass, right? So now, in this particular situation, we're only dealing with, 2 inches, give or take 2.5 inches. And what we were trying to avoid having to do was to put in some type of an upright or a brace from the underside. So, I mean, that was going to be plan B, but that wasn't, our first choice. So what we ended up doing was we came over with a type of glass that's called unidirectional fiberglass. And all that means is that all the strands of the glass are running in the same direction. So that means the glass will be extremely stiff in one direction, but not necessarily in the other. So we were able to take that unidirectional, run it lengthwise here, and it'll be extremely stiff, for when somebody steps on here, but it's also very flexible, so it's easy to wrap over this cowling. Very easy material to work with. So we used that material. I think we ended up doing three layers, three layers of unidirectional, and then we buttered up the backside with some thickened epoxy, and laid some additional unidirectional back there. And now I would say this is way stronger than it ever was originally from the factory.
Right,
I mean, we can
right.
step on this, and if it moves, but not like it used to, not at all like it used to.
Right,
No.
right, exactly. And then over that we use Total Fair, right? That's what the green is.
Yes, sir.
And maybe Total Faired it, sand it, Total Faired it, sand it a few times.
Yep, I think we ended up going around 3 rounds. Now we're doing
Right.
this as prep for painting.
Right.
Now, if we were going to be finishing this with Gelcoat, we would not be using Total Fair. We'd be using more of a polyester-based product. But because we're going to be painting, Total Fair being epoxy-based was really the best option for smoothing out the surface. So I think it turned out great.
Can you just touch quickly, because I think that's important, basically, like if you're using polyester products, you would finish with gel coat, and if you're using epoxy, you're preparing for paint. Is that basically
Yeah. So all right.
a
So
good rule?
let me take a little bit of a step back. So that's a common question that people run into, because I do a lot of consulting with folks on their own or personal projects, and I would say probably the most common question is, well, when should I use epoxy? When should I use polyester resin? And really, the explanation that I give is it really comes down to 3 factors. One is going to be primarily, how are you going to be finishing it? Are you going to be finishing with gel coat? Are you going to be finishing with paint? And kind of the short answer there is, if you're going to be finishing with gel coat, you have to be using polyester-based products start to finish. Epoxy really should not be introduced at any stage throughout that process. Now,
And that would be basically using a polyester filler,
yep,
or using polyester resin instead of an epoxy resin
for the glasswork, yeah.
for the glasswork.
As
And
well
that's
as-
really what we're talking about.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Now, if you're going to be finishing with paint, you can use either epoxy or polyester for the glasswork, but when it comes, and I'll touch on those other 2 factors here that are considerations, but when it comes to finishing with paint, really epoxy-based material for the glasswork and specifically for the fairing are really your best option. It shrinks less, it deforms less during the curing process, which can take several weeks. So it's just for a paint finish, epoxy is really the better option to go with. Now, as far as other things to consider when you're working with or trying to decide between poly or epoxy, factor number 2 would be the temperatures that you're working in. Polyester products, regardless of what it is, whether it's polyester or whether it's the resin that you're using for the glasswork or for the fairing compounds or for the gel coat for the finishing, polyester products in general, they are happy when it's 65 degrees Fahrenheit or warmer. I don't have any idea how that translates over to Celsius, but they like warmer temps. Whereas epoxy, depending if you're going with a fast hardener, again, I'm trying to keep things concise here.
Yeah.
But with epoxy, you got 3 different hardeners. Slow, medium, and fast. With your fast hardener, you can go down to 40 degrees,
Right,
40,
right.
45 degrees, something like that. Whereas that's not even an option if you're working with polyester resin.
Right.
And the third factor to kind of consider is how large of an area are you working on? If you're working on a large area where you need that extended working time for doing whatever, whether it's bonding a new coring material, wetting out some fiberglass, whatever it may happen to be. But if time is not going to be on your side and you need to extend that open window as long as possible, that's another place where epoxy really shines. Polyester resin is very temperature sensitive, and in warmer temps, say like 75, 80, 85 degrees, summertime, your working window can be pretty short. In some cases, 10, 15 minutes, whereas with epoxies,
You could slow it down. You could use a slow hardener with epoxy and slow it down.
Right, with epoxy you can,
Right.
but you don't have that
You
option
don't
with
have
polyester
that, right.
material.
Exactly.
And it all catalyzes with MEKP, right? So
Yep.
it's not a resin and hardener system. This is the
Yeah, it's much more straightforward. I mean,
Right.
you've got several polyester-based products, but you've got one hardener and one hardener to rule them all.
Right.
So that's So it's much more straightforward. In a lot of cases, for myself, that's always worked out to be an advantage. Because if when I was doing contract work, if you're looking for fast turnover time,
exactly.
you don't want to do a layup and then have to
wait a day,
punt until the next day to come back and follow up. You can lay it up in the morning, jump on something else for the afternoon, come back late afternoon, and your material's set up
and do it again.
Yep.
Right, exactly.
And just keep on keeping on.
Right, you can go faster, and polyester products are often a little less expensive as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you get speed and maybe a value, but you don't have that flexibility.
Right.
And that can be important, which is a good segue into some of the gel coat that we did on the center console, right?
Yes.
'Cause some of the center console we used all polyester products.
For the console, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe should we point out? You can see we're in different sort of stages, but you can see here there's some gel coat that hasn't been sanded yet. You can see another repair in the center here where the gel coat matched pretty good. But you can still see a little bit of it. And there are some other repairs that you can't see at all that we nailed the...
I was going to say, this entire front edge, this was all jacked up.
Right,
So
right.
that came out beautiful.
And that came out really good.
So the other areas up here, the color needs to be tweaked a little bit. And they're not as far along in the finishing process as this forward edge on this bench here. So that will come, but it's just not going to come today.
And this was all polyester. So we used...
Yes.
We used some polyester resin and maybe some fiberglass, and then on top of that, maybe we used some polyester fairing compound, and then over that we used gel coat, which is polyester.
The color match, the color match gel coat.
Right, right.
And I thought, because a lot of people, actually this is pretty common, the reason that we gel coated and repaired this console is because there were holes that were left over from old instruments and an old T-top that was taken off, and so there were a speaker hole was filled. So that seems to be something that we hear about a lot in our tech center, is people filling holes that aren't needed anymore in the boat, which of course nobody wants. And the way that Andy did it, I thought was really interesting, because you were using something, again, that a lot of people haven't seen before, but it's a different kind of a matte fiberglass.
Top strand matting.
So, and you were just, I mean, this stuff is so easy to use. You just picked off a little piece like this and dabbed on the epoxy or the resin that you needed, and then this was all still
wispy bits
that he then went back and just sanded off,
right.
and this adds a lot of strength.
Yeah,
and is better than just filling a hole with some epoxy or thick soap.
Yeah, so I mean, we filled in, I don't know, what, 30, 40, 50 old screw holes. And what can tend to happen if you only just throw some filler into an old screw hole, it may take a week, it may take a month, it might last forever, but more oftentimes than not, whatever material you used as the filler, it loses its bond along the edge, and all of a sudden it pops loose and either pops out or it leaves you with that nice little outline of where the old screw used to be, which kind of defeats the purpose of trying to make it go away. So one workaround for that is, after you go ahead and you apply your filler, again, dimple the surface and then put in a piece of fiberglass. It could be chop strand matting, it could be a chunk of 1708, some type of a fiberglass fabric. Put that over top, and that basically, it just gives you a fresh skin over the top. So even if the plug, for lack of better terms, even if that does pop loose, it's not going to print back through that fiberglass skin. So the repair that you do on there, it will never come back. So that's why we took the approach that we did on here, because as much as I love coming to visit these guys, I don't want to have to do 50, 60 more holes again.
We're done.
Yep, one and done.
We're done.
We're done.
What else should we talk about here? You want to talk about the floor?
Yeah.
Like what's the next thing that, since we're already standing right here?
Yeah.
We also we fixed the through hole.
Yeah, you removed the through hole because that was more of a safety issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Boats are supposed to stay on top of the water and not beneath them, right?
Right. So there's a through hole that went to a compartment up here in the bow, and it went all the way, through the hull down below the water line. And it's just sort of a relic from the past, where I think they had a drain in case you were using the compartment up here as a bait well or something, maybe,
Or a cooler.
or a cooler. So what we did was we cut a larger hole right here. I'm not sure if you can see that, Justin. So we could get in down below, and then we cut out the hose that was down there, and then there's a hole over here, which again now is just covered.
Was a hole.
It was a hole, and we filled it in with epoxy products, right?
Yep.
So it was probably grinded it out, and then we used I don't know, 6 or 12 ounce glass.
We did. All right. So
1708.
yeah. So we
1708.
So for closing up the through hole, like the exterior part on the hull here, because that's below the water line, and again, that's one of those things where epoxy really excels. It is much less impervious. It handles moisture a lot better. It doesn't absorb moisture as much as, say, like a polyester or even a vinyl ester. So because it's below the water line, we did all the prep, which involved tapering out around the through hole. I think we went out 6-8 inches, give or take, almost full thickness of the hull. And then we started layering in layers of 1708 that were wet out with epoxy, and then faired that out with your Total Fair.
Yep.
And then
And here's
finished it
some
off.
1708 has 2 different sides, one that's chopped up and one that's woven,
Yeah.
and they're stitched together.
It's all stitched. So that's a question that kind of people get confused on, is because chop strand matting, generally speaking, isn't the type of material that you're going to be using if you're working with epoxy. It works fantastic with polyester resin, but if you're working with epoxy, not so much. I mean, there are epoxy compatible chop strand matting that's available, but really nobody here in the United States carries it. I'm not saying that nobody does, but it's not readily available. Now, the reason for that is because the chop strand matting, this kind of chop strand matting, it's held together with a styrene-based binder. And until that binder in this fabric essentially dissolves, the material stays kind of stiff, and it's not really the easiest to work with. Now, when you're using that with polyester resin, the primary component in that is styrene.
Right.
So it melts the material that's in here. The material becomes extremely malleable, flexible, easy to work with. Now, as opposed to the chop strand matting that's on the back of 1708, this chop strand matting does not contain any kind of a binder. All this material is stitched together, so you can use this with epoxy, and it works fantastic with epoxy. I'd say this is probably the material that I'll use 95% of the time. So
Yeah.
whether it's with epoxy or polyester resin, I love this stuff. It's stupid strong. it's so good.
And we have it on TotalBoat.com, all these fiberglasses as
Yes.
well. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Justin, do you want to just come around here so we can show them where the hole was, just to give them a little bit more context? So, it's not going to look like much now, but there was a hole right here that we patched up. It was right here. So this nice area. So there was a through hole fitting right here, and we moved that because what we didn't want there ever to be an issue with the plumbing and have water come in this way. You want as few holes in your boat as possible, for obvious reasons. Thank you, Justin. What do you want to talk about now? Are there any questions?
Yeah, I can see what's coming. Anything coming in?
Go over how you patch the Gelcoat. I think that would be interesting in your technique. Because it's a pretty good job. Basin.
A basin. All right.
You got your 3 feathers right there.
Yeah, and
Okay.
you can see, Justin, if you come over here, we can show some good matches and some matches that aren't finished yet. So each of these were holes where Andy did a patch and a gel coat fix, and you can see how we're not totally done, but you can see how close the color is.
Well, show it.
Here,
Forward.
yeah, no, you
The
come over
forward
here.
end.
You go over there.
Justin, you know where the money shots are.
Yeah.
Yeah, John, stay over here. I'll tell you what. Let me step around. Go over the front here. All right, so we're gonna do gel coat basics 101. The finishing part of it. So now, when you're doing any type of finishing off a fiberglass repair that's gonna be done with gel coat, right? There are a couple things to consider. One, the gel coat that you buy, it comes in either a straight bright white, a neutral, or do you guys carry a black?
No, neutral and white.
Neutral and
we
white.
carry black tone.
Oh, we do.
Do you? Okay.
We carry that, moon dust, and
But we focus on the white.
Yeah, 99% of the time,
Focusing on the
regardless of your color, if it's a cream, a white, pretty much the color of 90+% of boats out there, you're going to be starting with a white base of your gel coat. And I highly suggest you start with a non-waxed or a laminating gel coat, which I'll get into here in a minute. Now, this material is tinted with these, I forget what the technical, dispersion pigments?
Yes.
Okay. And there's a dozen different colors, but again, try and keep things simple. If your boat is a white, off-white, cream, beige, anything along those lines, again, we're probably talking about 90-95% of all hull colors that are out there. You're going to be using 3 primary tints. Your yellow, your black, and your brown. Now, obviously, in different ratios, depending on what kind of color you're trying to achieve. But these 3 colors in a can of this, and a little bit of practice and a little bit of luck, you can make any repair on your boat essentially just disappear.
Even like orange and red and purple. Can you get purple out of those 3 tints?
No. All right. So that's when you start getting into more of those vibrant or really dark colors. That's where your neutral base comes in. So rather than having a white base, it'll just say that it's a neutral base. Although you would think that as a neutral base, it's clear. It's not clear. It's kind of like a snotty brown. But that's the color. That's the kind of base that you're going to start with. And from there, if you were to if you're using, say, like a neutral base gel coat and you add in red, you're going to get a fire engine red color. Now, if you take a white base and you add red, doesn't matter I don't care how much red you throw in there, the best you're going to get is a pink.
It's pink, right.
And that's it.
Right.
So if you're looking for those bright, like banana yellows, dark navy blues, blacks, bright, vibrant colors or dark colors, you have to start with a neutral. But again, that's probably not going to apply to most situations.
Most situations you need these 3 tints
Yeah.
and white gel coat, and then it's the magic that you're about to explain to us.
Well, that's a hard one to kind of explain here. But essentially, what you're doing is you're taking these tints in different ratios and you're combining them with your base. And it takes very little. I mean, a little bit of this stuff goes a long ways. So you're adding a little bit of each color, a little bit at a time, and you're sneaking up on the color. And while you're doing this, every time you add some tint to your base, you roll out what I call a swatch, right? So it's just basically you take a popsicle stick, put a little dab of the gel coat on the surface next to the area that you're going to be repairing, and see how close that match is.
And that's not with hardener in it? Is that without hardener?
No.
Right.
No, nothing.
So you can just do color tests as long as you want without the hardener.
Yep.
Right. All right.
Yeah. No, I've done matches where I'll have 40, 50, 60 color swatches, and it's kind of cool because when you start at the beginning, where you start from a bright white, you can see it, throughout the stages, sneaking up on it closer and closer. And you're like, oh no, I went too far off, too far with this particular color. I got to correct that. Come back and add some more of something else. But I mean, it's kind of cool when it's all said and done to be able to see that progression from start to finish, and you're like, damn, I did that.
Right, and then when you get it, then you can add the activator, and you can actually go for it.
Yep. So once you get it, when you're actually going to apply it, you don't if you tint a whole quart, don't catalyze the whole quart. Ask me how I know. You just pour off an ounce or 2 ounces or 3 ounces, whatever you need. Pour off what you need, catalyze that, apply it, and then kind of move on. A year, a month, 2 months, upwards of a year later. If you have another, if a dock jumps out and decides to kiss the side of your boat, you can pour off some more of this, catalyze it. It's already pre-color matched. Reapply it and go about with your weekend.
Awesome.
So that's the easy way, or that's the most simplified way of explaining how to do it as I can put together. Now, there are numerous videos that I have on my channel going through step by step of the color matching process, to include prepping the surface, making sure that you're getting an accurate color that you're trying to match to, how you're actually adding the pigment to the gel coat. You're not scooping it up and throwing it in the can. You'll overshoot your color every single time. So I have all that information available on my website, or probably check out my YouTube channel. It says youtube.com/boatworkstoday. And then once you get to that page, you can click on that little magnifying glass in the top right-hand corner and search in whatever topic that you're looking for, whether it's fiberglass, woodworking, varnishing, painting, gel coating, whatever it may happen to be, and it'll search through my entire catalog of, I don't even know how many I got, 300?
Yeah,
300?
I don't know.
I don't know. We got a bunch of videos out there. been doing this for quite a while. But yeah, if you're looking for some, a topic that's related to structural or cosmetic type repairs, more than likely that I've covered it more than once.
And we have some new videos coming that we just made with you this week.
Right.
That'll address all of this, and you'll see this boat in those videos.
Yes,
So,
from start to finish.
so if you have a white boat, you want those 3 colors. If
Yep.
you're trying to match one of these off-whites, that's like your kit right there.
Yeah. I've had people say, you should have them put together a Boatworks Today kit.
We
I'm
hear
like,
you.
Yeah, well, I'm
Maybe
going
we
to be around.
will.
I'm going to be around the right people to
Exactly.
float that idea past. So.
That's awesome.
Do you ever use a color matching app to help?
No, but I will say I used to. I think the website's gone now, but there was a website because when you're trying to understand, or when you're trying to explain, colors and how 2 different colors or 3 different colors kind of work together and combine. Maybe you can use one color to dull down another color that you may have overshot. There used to be a website, and unfortunately it's gone now. But it was kind of like that, what you used to do in grade school. I mean, you could go through and say, I want to use this color and this color. And you could say, I want to do 25% of this color and 75% of this color. This is what the end result would look like. Or you could bring in a third color, and it'd show you if it would, what direction it would change that color, or if it would kind of dial it back. Again, it's one of those things that's kind of hard to explain, but there used to be a resource on there. I don't know. I don't think it's there anymore.
The Google has it somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Googles.
Cool.
What else do we want to talk about? How much time do we have? Do we go until everyone leaves, or how does this work?
Have we gotten any more questions? I think we answered a bunch of the questions that were sent ahead of time about the different epoxies and resins.
One thing I don't know if I mentioned this, but I think I did. But getting back to the gel coat and your tints, when you're doing this, gel coat comes in 2 different varieties, one with wax and one without. The difference between those two, if you're working with a laminating type material, and it means it does not contain wax, and that comes in either the gel coat or with the polyester resin that you're going to be wetting out your fiberglass with. Now, what that allows you to do is to do one, a layup, say like on a Monday, and you could walk away till Tuesday, Wednesday, next month if you wanted to. And you can come right back and lay up additional material without having to sand it, because that surface stays open, making, again, it's a laminating type material. Now, if it contains wax, polyester resins fully cure when the surface is void of oxygen. So what that means is that you apply this material, the wax, this mixed into this stuff, it floats up to the surface, creates an air barrier, which allows all of that material to fully cure. Now, when you're wanting to sand, whether it's to remove some material, do some shaping, whatever it may happen to be, that's what you want, because when you're sanding, the sanding is actually going to be nice and clean. It's not going to gum up your paper. But when you're if you're doing a gel coat repair and you're looking to build some thickness, so you want to apply some material over several different occasions, you want to use a laminating material so that you're able to do that without having to do a bunch of extra prep between each step. Did I come across all right?
Yes, and people are like,
awesome.
that. This is amazing info.
Right,
So
right.
it's something that our tech team gets all the time.
Right.
I'm sure.
Questions about gel coat with and without
Right.
wax, and you just did a really good.
Yeah, I mean, so what I would say,
Explanation.
generally, when I was doing the contract work, I would have a can of each in my kit. So I would use the laminating stuff for doing all of the build, and especially if you're working with glass, eventually you're going to get a little whisker that sticks up and it screws up being able to lay your next piece of glass and have it lay flat. When you get to that point, then I'll go ahead and I'll apply a waxed material or a finishing type material so that it all cures, come back, give it a quick knockdown, it sands nice and clean, and then you can switch right back over to laminating resin again. Now, so your waxed material is only used for the final step before you want to do any sanding or shaping. Up until that point, I would always use laminating. That was always the way that I operated.
Or without wax, yeah.
Yeah.
Good call. Thank you.
We have a nice question from SV Dauntless.
Ah,
They ask, Andy, can you talk about gel coating over epoxy repairs?
yes.
The curveball.
Yes. All right.
Right.
So here's kind of the way that because I've covered
Did
this.
they
in the past.
hear that? Should he repeat the question?
talking about applying gel
Yeah,
coat
they're here.
over top of epoxy. Now, I'm going to say it is generally accepted that that is a no-no, because polyester resin can have a tendency to kind of debond from the epoxy over time. However, I have done videos where I have broken my own rules, and I've done that. And the results that I have gotten were consistently very positive. Now, that said, here's the way that I break it down. If you're in a pinch and you're trying to do a patch on a small area, if that small area fails, it's a small problem, right? Now, if you're trying this on a large area and that large area fails, now you got a situation. It's not a matter of, okay, well, it's another hour or two of prep and screwing around to get this thing, back up to looking good. Right. It can set you back weeks. So that's kind of how I look at it. If you have the option, it's best not to do it. But you don't always have that option. Sometimes you're in a bind and you're like, well, this is what I got. This is what I got to use. But keep that in mind. If a small area fails, it's a small problem. If a big area fails, that's going to be a very bad week for you.
The TotalBoat answer to that is to use our Total Protect epoxy primer, which is a 2-part primer that you could put over
As a
Total Fair right there, for example,
exactly.
which is
Right.
the Total Fair is epoxy base, and then if you put Total Protect, you could then gel coat.
Right.
You could.
And that's really the trick, I think, is you want to use primer. Right.
Yeah.
There's with almost everything in most respects of boat repair, there are tricks and there are workarounds. But it just depends on how complicated you want to make things. Like for me, trying to explain this to someone.
Yeah, no.
It depends on how complicated I want to make it. Are there workarounds for damn near everything? Yeah. Does that mean it's going to be simple and straightforward? Probably not.
No.
So
No.
that's kind of how I look at it.
Cool.
But Total Protect is basically the answer.
Yeah.
If you use Total Protect over it, then you can
use it as a tie coat.
Right.
Yeah.
You can use that
Yeah,
as a
tie
tie
coat,
coat,
exactly.
and that sort of neutralizes everything and makes both parties happy with each other.
Right.
Right.
Or at least not hate each other.
Yeah.
Do you have any tricks for applying Total Fair into a tight radius?
Your finger. Seriously, don't be afraid to get dirty.
Yeah.
Put on a glove, and when you've got limited access, that is your best tool. Get in there, even wear a glove.
Right.
But get in there and do your shaping, and keep in mind that when you're doing this, you don't need to smooth it out to a perfect finish. Fairing compounds in overall, they sand easy for that very reason. So all you gotta do is it's like horseshoes. All you gotta do is just get it close, and you can sand the shape, afterwards.
Right.
So yeah.
Cool. Good. I think that sort of covers what we wanted to cover.
Right.
We've answered a bunch of questions, and somebody was asking if this is the boat that you made last week in your April Fool's video.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the boat, yeah.
Then we got a
exactly.
bigger bucket and we made this boat, which is cool.
Exactly. Go watch that video.
Other things that we did is we're gonna paint the floor. So Justin, you can just point down. You can see we've sanded a good portion of the non-skid off, and then we used Total Fair in some of these radiuses and fixed some of the crazing and cracking, and then we're gonna put Total Tread. I don't know. We're gonna put Total Protect on it first, and then Total Tread.
No, primer.
Yeah.
1 part primer, right? So we're gonna paint the floor, and then we did a few more. If you want
This
to
is
come
a good
back
one back
here.
here too.
Yeah, so if you come back here, Justin, we did a few more fiberglass repairs. You can see we fixed another crack that was here in the gel coat, and again we used epoxy products here. So if we want a gel coat, we'll probably put Total Protect over that. I think we're probably actually going to paint the side of the inside of the cockpit. Here is where there's a cleat. So there's a transom cleat right here, and again we had gel coat cracking here. So very similar to the same project where we sanded it down, we ground it out, and then we used that 1807, is that what it was? 1708, 1807, 1708 with epoxy, and then fairing compound, and then I'm not sure if we're going to use Total Protect and gel coat or if we're going to paint it, but we'll figure that out.
That's all going to be painted.
Exactly. So that was pretty much the majority of the projects. There was really sort of cosmetic and gel coat repairs, and we really wanted to get a chance to use all these products with Andy because he's the expert, and document a lot of them and make some how-tos. And like we said, we've had 2 weeks with Andy, which has been really fun.
Absolutely.
So
To come back and we can use the boat.
well, exactly. And then
Yeah.
this summer we'll go fishing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if people that are watching have questions about their own boat, other than watching videos on your channel or the TotalBoat YouTube channel, what should they do about asking you questions about how to repair little
Okay.
projects?
So consulting, is something I do quite a bit of. Probably a little bit more so now going forward. Short story is I go in for surgery next week, so I'm going to be laid up for several months. So without being able to do the physical work, rather than being bummed out about that, I'm going to focus on the things that I can do, which I can still consult with people on their projects. And the way that where I operate all of that through is through my Patreon account. So again, that's just patreon.com/boatworkstoday. And there's a number of different levels there, whether if you're just looking for email support or if you want to do monthly or even weekly video chats where you can be on your boat and in live time, we can go through everything step by step and answer any questions that may come up along the way. So you can go ahead and check me out there. That's probably the best place if you're looking for consulting. That's probably the best place. I try and keep everything there just because it's easy to keep everything organized.
Right. And if you want to buy some of these TotalBoat products today, you can get them at totalboat.com/boatworkstoday. And Andy will get a little affiliate from that, and you'll get a little discount, and everybody's happy.
Yep.
And thanks, you guys. This has
Yeah.
been awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for tuning
you.
in. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Awesome. See you guys.
Don't stare at the sun Monday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Tune in. Oh.